Welcome to Beauty and the Mess podcast. Today we've got DallasK, music producer, DJ, and songwriter. Dallas, thank you so much for being here. I've been excited for this connection today. It's been several months. Actually, it's been I think a
Almost a
year.
year, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
a
Yes.
whole year, I know.
I
Um,
can't even believe that.
I
And
know time it really does fly. I was just thinking about that the other day of kind of when that time that we met was, and it was almost a year ago. I think
yes.
maybe, I actually think a full year. I think it was in February of last year.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yep. It
Um,
was.
but yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yes. 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 Tell us a little bit about how you got started to become a
Sure.
music producer and songwriter and DJ with incredible
Yeah,
music.
definitely. So it all started from a love of music, I think, which started really young in my life. I grew up in a household where, my mom always had the radio on. My dad was always really interested in music as far as just as like a hobbyist, more or less, just playing guitar and singing songs and stuff like that. And so I got exposed to a lot of different types of music really early in my life. And from there, I think, my first memory of kind of really being interested in music beyond just like listening to it and being like, I like the song was when I was in elementary school. I was born in Michigan, and my family moved to Florida about the time that I was 4 or 5. So a little background on this whole thing is Orlando, Florida, where we moved, actually had like a really large dance music community. Probably bigger than Miami at that point in time, and definitely the biggest in the Southeast. So when we moved there was actually a FM terrestrial radio station that played nothing but dance music. So when I was in probably like 3rd or 4th grade, we'd listen to this, and I really, really loved this radio station and these songs. And I just like was begging my parents to buy me turntables and let me become a DJ and like buy me vinyls and buy me all these things that I was just like, no, I can do this. I know I'm young, but I could be a DJ. And they were obviously very skeptical because as a parent, it's not a fixed cost of where you buy your child an instrument and then they learn it and they get really good at it with DJing. It's like you're only as good as the records that you have as well. So it's like, it's definitely a scalable expense. And I played sports and everything. So they were like, okay. So instead they actually bought me a guitar, which in the long run of my life and career, I think was actually a lot better of an investment for me because it allowed me to like learn an instrument and learn a skill set that's probably more useful than becoming like a vinyl DJ at that point as like a 3rd grader. Because I could have gotten frustrated with it and given up on it. But from there, that kind of spurred my love of playing music. And then I was in bands for some time, and then the issue with being in a band when you're in late middle school or early high school is getting your friends to actually practice. Everyone has a job at PacSun at the mall or has like a new girlfriend that they want to hang out with or whatever it is, but it's just like getting everyone as focused as I was an issue. And one of the summers when we went back to Michigan to visit my family, one of my cousins had a computer program called Fruity Loops, and he was like making music on his computer, and I was like, wait, like I can do this. So from there, I just kind of realized that like that's sick. Like I have to figure out what this is. I have to figure out like how to do this. And I also then realized that I can do all this myself and not have to wait for anyone else to kind of get to my page of excitement or what have you. So from there, from there, I just kind of started to zone out on that on my family's computer, just like making music all the time, just like experimenting with this stuff, like learning these programs. And probably about the time I got to high school or like end of high school, I was like taking it really seriously at that point. I had kind of discovered all these new electronic acts that were putting out music that I really liked. And I was like, okay, I want to DJ, like I want to play these songs that I'm making. I want to, go DJ the parties, DJ all the events, whatever. I want to do this. So that's kind of how I got started into DJing, was just from actually making music. So it kind of comes back full circle there a little bit. And beyond that, I think it was good. I was DJing like basketball games and school dances and house parties. And it was like, it was obviously just like stuff to cut your teeth and get better at it, but I think it was actually really helpful for me in the long run. And from there, I just I went on to like start making songs and just sending them out to people and sending them to blogs to get them posted. And it all kind of happened semi-organically to some extent, where people were just like, cool, like, do you want to come like DJ in Boston or DJ in San Francisco? And this was kind of actually after the time that I made a short run of my short collegiate run, where I went to Florida State for a summer semester and a fall semester, and then just realized that my passions were, you know, elsewhere, and it wasn't necessarily the best use of my time to do this. And I was just back in Orlando making music, and everything kind of fell into place through the connections that I had made in Tallahassee at Florida State, actually. And
Wow.
And from there, we just, or sorry, I keep saying we. I say we a lot because I just like, I always work with a lot of people, and like my team, I always refer to this journey as an artist as like a we thing, because it's not necessarily just
I
me
love
doing it.
that. Mhm.
Um, and I'm still getting over my illness, so my brain is not working at 100% capacity. Um, Point being, from there, people started emailing me, hey, do you want to come DJ? Hey, do you want to release your song on this label, on this thing? And, you know, they were all smaller opportunities, but for me, I was like, oh, cool, like I can actually do this, and I can actually make a career and a living out of this. This is really interesting to me. And from there, I ended up getting a booking agent. It was a guy named Lee Anderson at AM Only, who was at the time repping like Skrillex and Zed and all these, like basically all my favorite artists at that point. So I was like, okay, great. Um, and at the same time, I was fortunate enough to come to LA and then meet a lot of these creators that were making pop music as well, like writing a lot of hit songs and everything like that. So I kind of started to develop this other career as a songwriter and a producer in tandem with that. Which is kind of where the two roads split at some point, but are also very much intertwined still. Because for me too, as a music maker, it's really freeing to be able to help another artist with their vision. Or even if you're just working with songwriters and you're making a song, you can wear a different hat every day. You can make a different song. You can be a different artist. So for me as a producer and a writer, that was really freeing to get to do, because, you know, when you're making dance music, it's almost more functional. It's like, can I play this? Will people dance? Well, you know, and
Right.
you're still making music, and it's still creative, and it's still it's still like a songwriting process. It's just a different game, so to speak. So from there, when I was in LA, or I guess I moved to LA. That's another part of it.
So
I came
how
to
long
LA.
ago was that?
This was 2011. I came to
Okay.
LA for the first time in March or May, probably. And then I came
Okay.
back in the summer in June or July. And I was supposed to stay for a week, and I stayed for like 3 months. And from there, as I started playing more shows, I was just like, this is where I want to be. Like, this is where everything's happening. If I have time between, you know, shows, I'm going to just come to LA. And look, that was based off the fact that, I mean, I met a songwriter named Jay Cash, and he was just like, bro, like, sleep on my couch, like whatever, like, I don't care. And like, I was very fortunate to meet these people who kind of like guided me in certain ways in the business and kind of helped me get my start. And I owe them a lot, because, you know, moving to LA as a young kid is one thing. And, you know, if you don't know anyone too, it's like, okay, cool. LA is a very isolating city. So you're sitting in your apartment all the time and you don't see anyone, and maybe you have a couple friends, but it's like, I kind of got like shuffled right into a good friend group. A lot of them were actually from Florida. So it like worked out to where even if I was gone for 3 weeks playing shows, I would come back and I, you know, felt a part of a community and a friend group. But from there, I'm trying to annotate this all very quickly, but so from there I was like living in LA, and I ended up signing a publishing deal with a company called Prescription Songs, which has been my publisher for my whole career, and they've done really, really well for me. And it just became splitting time between touring as a DJ and writing songs. And around 2016, I think, is where I produced like basically what became my first hit record, which was Fifth Harmony, Work From Home. And that kind of changed everything for me, because then it was like, as a songwriter, I had way more opportunity than I did as an artist and a DJ at that point. So it was like, even though I was still playing, I still probably played like 50 or 60 shows that year. It was like, there was a whole mess of opportunity for me in LA. So it was like trying to figure out how to split those times between songwriting and working on my own artist career. And I think that's kind of been my struggle thus far with the rest of my career of trying to figure out how to balance these two things. But around 2018, I basically had realized that I had built two separate careers. There were people who knew me as a DJ. There were people who knew me as a songwriter. And I was like, if I can merge these two things together, it's going to make my life a lot easier. It's going to make what I do a lot more, there's going to be a lot more through lines in what I do. And it's just going to be better for me and for everyone, I think. So that's kind of been my goal over the last like year or two, is just kind of like merging those two worlds, so to speak.
So when I met you last year at Tony Robbins,
Sure.
was that when things started taking off for you? Because I know that you recently produced a new album.
No, I mean, I was already pretty well established by 2018. I started touring as a DJ. Yeah, I missed a lot of timeline aspects here.
Okay.
Yeah, around like 2012 is when I actually started touring as a DJ. So that was kind of when things started taking off for me as an artist in as far as like the EDM world, and that was concerned, and that's been going since then. And then 2016 was kind of my songwriter career. Like that's when that started to do a lot better.
So
sure.
what really fuels the drive to be able to do so many different things and weave them together?
I think it's the no day is ever the same, is actually what's the most exciting, is that it's like, there's no monotony in what it is that I do. You know, to some extent, like what my week it consists of is, you know, Monday through Friday, I have songwriters in my house and we're working on stuff, or I'm finishing production on stuff. But it's like, even within the monotony of that construct, it's like every single day is different. It's different people, it's different projects, it's different everything. So I think that just like not having to wake up and work on the same thing over and over and over again, and you know, and you do to some extent. I mean, to finish a song, it's, you know, I can sit in this room for 16, 17 hours straight and be working on one minute aspect of it that probably nobody will ever realize. But
that's incredible. So you as an artist is really freed in a sense to be able to have a multi-passionate lifestyle.
Sure. I mean, it's all under the umbrella of music to some extent. But I think that's what keeps it interesting for me and keeps me going at it, is I don't have to do, you know, I know a lot of artists who, you know, they're EDM DJs and nothing else, and that's what they do. And then they feel like stuck and trapped by having to make this one type of thing. And it's like, you know, that can be, from a creative perspective, it's like, that can just be kind of debilitating, because you're like, okay, cool. So I have to do the same thing again. And if I can't really do this other thing, I mean, even though, I mean, it's probably a farce that you can't do a different thing. I think anyone can do whatever they want. And I think music fans are actually more open to artists experimenting than the artist actually thinks they are, if that makes sense.
So true. And I love that you talk about we and having a team. You know, a lot of artists are more isolated. What was that journey like for you?
Well, it's been, I mean, it's not without its changes. I mean, I've definitely had, you know, the unfortunate part of having a team is having to change members out and work with new people. And that's been something actually that's over the last like year or two been something that's new to me. But I think like, I mean, I have my manager who, you know, I have two managers, my agent who, you know, it's a team of about 2 or 3 people who work on that. Then my lawyer, my business manager, my publishers. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Those are like my people that I really, I mean, and then we obviously work with different record labels. So then you have the label team, then you have like, it definitely is not anything that anyone can do by themselves. I mean, I have my John who helps me here. on like a day-to-day basis. And I have, you know, it's definitely takes an army of people to be able to do this correctly, just because, you know, no one artist can do all this themselves. I think I mean, I guess you feasibly could, but I mean, I just think if you're trying to do it at a very high level and be able to focus on other projects, you need to delegate these tasks to other people. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a team effort when it comes to the whole process. You know, even from the creation aspect, very rarely am I creating all of these things 100% me. You know, I work with other songwriters, I work with other producers, and even if it's a song, for example, that I wrote 100% myself and produced 100% myself, I have somebody who mixes it, I have the mastering engineer, and then you take, you know, so it's like there's always other people involved in the process to some extent.
Yeah.
And I think it's like important to realize that it's like, yes, the art comes from me, but it's like, you know, we all together figure out how to get it into the world the best we can.
Yeah, I love that. So when you start writing a song or producing, where does that inspiration typically come from for you?
I get this question a lot, honestly, and it's probably less it's probably less magical than a person would assume the experience is. Like, you know, a lot of the times when I'm working with songwriters, it's just me playing chords either on piano or a synth sound or guitar or whatever, and we just start to think of melodies that kind of sound good over those, and then kind of like there might be a word in there, and we kind of pick out that word, and then it's a little bit of just like somebody described it as bottling magic the other day, and I do like that, because it's just kind of like collective thinking, and it all kind of comes together. With just like an idea from one person or the other of just like, oh, what about this melody, or what about this lyric, and it just kind of all falls into place. And those are the good days. Obviously there's days where it's like I call the bad session days escape rooms, because you're just trying to figure out how you can get out as fast as you can. It's like when you know, because like, look, the hard part about songwriting is like, you're not going to write a great song every day. You're not going to always get the one. So it's like just understanding that those days are going to happen just the same way that the days where you write amazing songs that inspire you are going to happen.
I love that. So what fuels you through the harder days?
Harder days? It's tough. If you know, the harder days are just like, I have a pretty good mentality about just being like, you know, not feeling like you wasted a day. It's like, even still, if you didn't get the song you wanted, you actually don't really know how that song or those parts of that song or that relationship with that writer can lead into the next great song or great opportunity or anything like that. So it's just like, it's just not being too hard on yourself or on others, and just being like, great, you know what, we didn't waste the day. It's just we didn't get what we wanted necessarily. So I don't know. I just try to kind of have an open mind to them, and just be not so hard on myself and hard on anyone else for that, because it's not really anyone's fault. Even the best songwriter in the world, even Ed Sheeran's probably not going to write a great song every day, and he's going to have some days where he just can't think of anything. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. And that goes for so much of life as well, right? You know, just out of curiosity, did you start that way, or was that something that you really began to discover the more that you?
No, that's all of the psychological aspects of the creative process are something that I've only really kind of dove into over the last like 2 years. And I think it's the most important thing that I have to share with creators, I think, because I mean, so much of freelance work in general, but then also creative work, it's obviously very subjective. It's art to some extent.
Right.
And the way that the world interacts with that art is not really up to you. You know, you can have the best business plan in the world, you can have the best marketer, you can have the best everything, and it just like, if people don't connect with it for whatever reason, not even the reason that it's bad, it's just, that's debilitating. That can be debilitating to somebody. So I think detaching yourself from the result of the outcome rather of what happens with a piece of art, and maintaining the love for the process and the love for the journey is kind of the most important thing that a creator can do, is strengthen that within themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. that's my main thesis on that stuff.
I love that. And I love, whenever you use the word collective thinking, I think that there's that aspect of connection that happens through art. And
Right.
I've personally never really had that experience because I'm not a songwriter. I'm more of a painter type of artist.
But I'm sure you've had a song that resonated with you, in some type of way and meant something to you in a certain part of your life. Yeah.
Yes. So can you expand more on what that is, what that experience is like for you when you were writing songs?
Sure. I mean, the one thing I think too, I met a really young songwriter who she just kind of realized that she liked writing songs and then kind of dove into it. And she's a friend of a friend. So I sat down with her, just kind of give her some advice or just kind of see where she's at and what she's thinking. And one thing that we kind of were kind of marveling at was how in a songwriting session, for whatever reason, when you get two people in there, or three people or four people who actually maybe don't even really know each other, the ability to go really deep into the conversation and be really vulnerable is like immensely higher than like anywhere else I've ever seen in my life, in my walking life. Like there's nowhere else I've been, with the exception of maybe the Tony Robbins UPW, where people are just so open. And I was in a session the other day, and and then it's like everyone's going through their entire love history and their relationship with their parents, and it was like 15 minutes into the session, and I was like, wait, like where else in the world can this happen? So I think there's something really magical about that, and maybe that's just a kind of a collective understanding of like, yo, we're here to make art. We can, we're here to listen to that part of you to see if it inspires something in us and inspires something in the song. And I wouldn't say that like every single musician is like that, but within the LA songwriting community, I've noticed that it's a thing where people just can meet each other and go really deep and have really vulnerable and honest conversations. And I think that's something that's really special too, because that doesn't happen really anywhere, I don't think.
Other than
very close friends, long relationships, stuff like that. But
right, other than at Tony Robbins, we were paired together for the love and relationships.
Exactly, right. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah.
I love that, and it's so true. There is something so unique when you can meet anybody at that openness and vulnerability, because ultimately that's who we are.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a big part of it too, is like people are just being themselves, and it's like, whether it's been fostered over time and generations of creators, I guess, that it's just like, or we're just predisposed to being those types of people because you're a creative in the first place. I'm not really sure which one it is, but it's definitely really powerful.
Yeah. As a creator and just really becoming more of who you are, what has been most fulfilling for you along the way?
I think it's being able to give back to others and my family, and I think a big part of my 2020 goals were realizing how lucky I was to have the people around me when I first got to LA, and like where I would be without them, I'm just like, I'm not really sure. I'm not entirely, I'm not entirely sure what kind of career I would have. Just from like being able to ask them a question when I had an issue, or like them introducing me to somebody. And like, so my thing is like, I want to be that person for other creators who like don't, because one of the hard parts about the music business is that if you didn't grow up with like a direct relative in it, or you didn't have like an uncle who's like a entertainment attorney, or an aunt who's like head of a music studio or something, like you don't know how any of the business side of this works. And you can go to school for it, I guess, and you can read books, but it's definitely a learning process. And I've learned the hard way more times than I can count. So for me, I'm just like, let me help somebody else not make some of the same, like not even missteps as far as like doing deals or whatever like that, just etiquette stuff, just how to deal with problems and stuff like that. And I'm just like, so I've been starting to do more of that, and that's been really fulfilling too, because I think that's I was so lucky to have that, and it's my journey to kind of share that with others now.
I love that. And I can imagine giving back is just so incredibly rewarding for you as you see people progress and get to
Yeah, I mean
see and witness their journey.
that's the goal, right? Exactly. Is just like see, because
Yeah.
I know I wasn't very good when I first got to LA, but somebody took a chance on me. Somebody was like, "Look, we're gonna make, you know, I see something in you that I think could be good." And so for me, it's about trying to develop that same skill and see that in other people, and like what opportunities do I have to give to somebody else, and like yeah, that can just help them further their career.
Mhm. And how have you overcome some of the challenges that you've faced as you've grown your business?
Um, I mean, the thing with music is always an ebb and flow, right? It's I mean, with any business, I think, right? It's like not
Yeah.
nobody's business is a complete upwards hockey stick forever. Um, and I think it's just, I mean, learning how to be an entrepreneur and a sole proprietor of a business, I think, is a whole different part of music that that gets glossed over really quickly. Is like, you know, because you're a kid who makes a lot of money essentially, or a lot of money in the relative sense to you as a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. It's all obviously very relative, but nobody tells you what to do with that. Nobody tells you about, I mean, your business managers tell you about taxes and whatever, but it's just like, um, even if you sign a record deal or you sign a thing and you get a huge advance check, it's like, yeah, you don't make $2 until you pay that entire check back. So don't go spend that right now. Um, and I just also think from a business perspective of just like the flow of work, you know, as a producer, it's like as a producer and songwriter, when you're working with artists, a lot of it is like you can work with an artist for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it's like, okay, but that they're not putting out an album until next year. So, and we don't know what songs we're going to use yet. So a lot of your business as a producer and a songwriter kind of relies on other people in a different way than you do with your internal team. It relies on other people making decisions that are going to be what's best for their artist and their client. Um, so it's kind of just like making sure you're always creating, um, and like I said, staying in love with the process too, and not really being like overcome with the result, and because you probably won't be thrilled 9 times out of 10. But I mean, the way I've faced challenges, I think, is definitely try to do self-improvement, self-growth, meditation. I think over the last couple of weeks, with the exception of me being sick last week and not really like I don't know if when you have a fever and you're like hallucinating almost, I don't know if meditating is actually the best idea.
Agree.
But I mean, for me, my personal journey has been realizing how fortunate I am to have the level of freedom in my life that I do. Just not even in any sort of sense other than time. Like I can spend a day however I choose at the end of the day, whether that's the best for me or not. That's my opportunity cost to decide. But just really honing in on the gratitude of that and really focusing on loving yourself and sending that love out into the world, and trying to help as many people and give back in as many ways as you can, and just give more of yourself to the world, I think is something that's helped me. I don't know if that's actually even the best use of in a business sense of my time, but it's just, for me, it's what makes me feel the best and makes me feel the most fulfilled, I think.
I love that. And I agree with you. I think that ultimately we can live from the inside out and create that way and create success that way as well. Because to a degree, it's all energy in a way of what you put out, you receive back. And it's refreshing to hear you in particular say, to love yourself and to love others. I think that message is sometimes lost in the mix of business.
I mean, yeah, I think too, the other part of that for me is like, I think self-love is actually just self-forgiving. I think it's just not being so, and just knowing that if you make a mistake, it's like, don't beat yourself up over that mistake. It's like, just use it as a reminder for the next time. And it's all mindfulness to some extent, to where okay, I'm aware that I did that. I shouldn't have probably done that. Or I wasted time doing this. Okay. And it's like, don't beat yourself up over it. It's all part of the journey. Just know that the next time that happens, just remind yourself, tap yourself on the shoulder, so to speak, and just be like, hey, well, remember how this last time and how you felt after? And, it's like, so I think it's just being more forgiving with yourself, which I think is, as a person who's a entrepreneur, whatever, I don't really love that word, but it's what you are as a musician at the end of the day.
Right.
I just think it's easy to be hard on yourself, and that's my journey of self-love. Do I wake up and look at myself in the mirror every morning and be like, I'm so thrilled with myself? It's like, no, I don't. And I don't think that having something that you want to improve about your life is a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I think that's what keeps people wanting to do things. I think that's motivation for the universe, but I just don't think, like, don't beat yourself up over every single little thing.
I love that. That's why I came up with Beauty in the Mess, because ultimately when things are a mess, there's so much beauty in it when you can open your eyes and see it and let go of that perfection and, self-judgment. And I full-heartedly agree with you on self-love, and it's just living in the moment, which is really what you articulated, is living in the moment and making the most of today. And
yeah, I mean, the past and the future actually don't exist to some extent. The past happened, it's real, but the future definitely doesn't exist yet, and you have no control over the past. I mean, as an artist too, and I think as a person in general, you can always look back and think of your past as reasons to limit yourself, or like your potential, or what you can do. Or like, well, okay, well, I already did this, so like, I don't know if I can do that. And I think I started that thought process as a musician. It's like, okay, I made this type of song, so I don't know if I can put out this type of song. But I think that it lent itself to like the greater thing of or the greater journey of my life of like, oh, well, okay, so if I'm already at this level, then like, can I be at that level? And it's like, well, yeah, you can, because none of that actually matters as much as you think it does.
Right.
And I think it's about separating yourself and letting go of the past, and to some extent that it actually impacts your future. I think if you committed a crime and you're in jail, yes, the past very much affects your future. But if you're a living, breathing human who's not incarcerated, there's always, you can always take it as far as you want it to go, I think. I mean,
and create your own future. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Any last thoughts?
I don't even really know. Just I'm grateful, and I hope that I can inspire others to just be themselves and do what they want to do.
You've inspired me. Thank you.
Great, love that.
You being here, and
of course.
I love following you and all that you do. And for people that are not following you yet, tell them, where can people follow you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, on Instagram at just DallasK, no space, no underscore, no anything. Twitter, same thing. Not as active on there as much as Instagram, but and then my music on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, Amazon, just DallasK. Once again, no space, and check it out. And that's great. That's it.
Thanks for joining us on Beauty and the Mess. Feel free to visit Robin on Instagram at Robin_Emmerich. Keep on living your beautiful life and embrace the mess.